For many years, Vanna White, the charming and charming letter flipper, has been a mainstay on the wildly famous game program Wheel of Fortune. Her captivating charm and unwavering dedication to the show have made her one of the most beloved TV characters. But when fans learned the reality behind all the flash and glamour, they were stunned. Why does Playboy feature a woman who has long been considered the epitome of poise and elegance on television? And why was there such a huge outcry when these private photos of her and her ex-boyfriend were published? Join Celebrity Beauty as we reveal the secrets of Vanna White. I was too embarrassed to ask my dad for rent money, so I did what we all do occasionally. Take some lingerie photographs. Vanna White is frequently pictured in people's minds as an exquisitely gorgeous woman in a glittering gown, grinning as she moves fluidly across the Wheel of Fortune stage. Liza Greer, a well-known Hollywood party girl and model in the 1980s, asserts that underneath that charming and naive exterior was a startlingly wild and defiant person. Greer said, "I used to think Vanna was the traditional type, sweet, reserved, and always composed, in an exclusive interview with Radar Online. All those illusions, however, were dashed one evening at the Playboy Mansion." Greer remembered Vanna's arrival in a silver satin dress, her eyes gleaming with an unparalleled charm and assurance. She was completely relaxed and not at all bashful. Greer claimed that she captivated everyone's attention as she walked into the room like a goddess. But it was Vanna's actions, not her charisma or attractiveness, that really startled Greer. It was her extraordinary openness to unusual events. Bisexuality was commonplace in the Playboy Mansion, where boundaries were blurred and all desires could be fulfilled. However, people were astonished by Vanna White's same-sex amorous escapades because she had a good girl image. She wasn't bashful about ladies, according to Greer. Instead, she was excited, curious, and seemed to enjoy the encounter. In addition to being a rising TV star at the time, Vanna was also engaged to John Gibson, an actor best known for his portrayal of Jerry Keeman on The Young and the Restless. Gibson's appearance on the cover of Playgirl magazine in 1975 made him a male sex symbol. A real-life Hollywood doctor, the couple was picture-perfect dot. There was no need for an explanation. Liza remarked, her eyes far away and filled with awe. Greer remembered being invited to Vanna's house on what appeared to be a typical evening. As courteous as ever, John went outside to get drinks and cigarettes. The moment the door closed, everything was different. She was incredibly attractive and captivating. The rest was instinctive, yet we were pulled to each other. There was much more going on behind the bedroom door that evening than just a quick fling. It wasn't an impromptu journey. According to Greer, Vanna's gestures conveyed an experienced sensuality that she could not have acquired from a first meeting. He felt forced to give in to her because she wasn't timid or innocent. But there was no longer any opportunity for the feelings that had grown in the shadows to endure the daylight. The gap between them widened the next morning. Vanna appeared to be retreating from her desires, which she had previously chased without fear. Perhaps she understood that her rebellious past could not coexist with the image of America's angel that she had worked so hard to establish. A single act of rebellion may endanger her career in the 1980s when anything unusual was closely examined. The uneasiness that remained every time Vanna saw Greer after that awful night was a subliminal reminder of the secret they had once shared. Vanna chose to remain silent and leave an anonymous legacy in order to preserve her status as the ideal TV personality. Ironically, tragic tragedy would soon define her private existence. John Gibson was tragically died in a plane crash just as it seemed that their bond would last forever. Although Vanna had previously bravely acknowledged her sadness, her relationship with Greer remained a closed chapter that she would never open again. Vanna White's narrative offers a moving look at the price of celebrity during a time when rigid moral standards governed every aspect of life, even in today's more accepting world. She was a young lady who had to choose between her public persona and her actual self. She wasn't alone. Many women in her era were forced to conceal parts of themselves in order to blend in with the unwritten standards of the entertainment industry. New information from ND's documentary is illuminating the legendary Playboy Mansion and revealing it as a stage where numerous lives were carefully suppressed. Vanna's quiet in this situation is interpreted as a survival strategy for a woman who ventured to enter a society that disapproved of vulnerability rather than as a sign of weakness. Pig Night, which seems like a twisted joke but was actually a regular event at the P, is one of the most startling findings. Morality and law were abandoned in favor of a well-planned, sophisticated fulfillment of primitive desires. Influence drives locked doors. The opulent estate would host an exclusive guest list every Thursday night, including prominent businessmen, politicians, powerful film producers, and A-list celebrities. The carefully chosen ladies from a high-end brothel were brought in not just to satiate cravings, but also to take part in a control ritual that raised the male ego to almost god status. The term high night wasn't merely used to disparagingly refer to the women that were brought in. It served as a sinister representation of moral deterioration that was justified by wealth and notoriety. Prominent personalities were reported as frequent visitors, including Stallone at the height of his muscular prime, Rod Stewart with his distinctive rock and roll grin, and Jack Nicholson with his smoke-veiled, shining eyes. They did more than simply show there. They contributed to keeping the revelry taking place behind the mansion's closed doors a secret. Others retreated into obscurity, leaving behind whispered rumors, while others called it emancipation. The world first learned about the horrific conflict between a celebrity's demise and the shady reality behind the spotlight when Greer, a victim and participant in those crazy nights, disclosed everything in her novel, You'll Never Love in This Town Again. Greer described vacant stages, nightmares, and the time she felt alienated when she was selected. Because Vanna White, who would go on to become a beloved TV star, was also referenced in these stories, many were compelled to consider the true cost of fame. She was a young woman living alone in the vast metropolis of Los Angeles, transporting delicate items, before she became the famous face of Wheel of Fortune. She agreed to pose for graphic pictures as a survival strategy rather than in defiance of authorities. As her fame began to grow, those pictures, which were supposed to stay in her childhood, wound up in the tabloids. People regarded her as a naked photog girl who dared to stand under the scrutiny of respectability, not as a talented game show host. The world didn't consider desperation or context back then. Women were stigmatized during a confused period in their teens, while strong men were easily absolved of sexual scandals in Hollywood. Among those women was Vanna White. Nevertheless, her unwavering resolve was unaffected by the spotlight. She chose to remain silent instead of using memoirs or verbal complaints. This choice turned out to be her most potent reaction, along with the unwavering smile she had throughout her thousands of episodes. She flourished rather than just survived. She became a crucial component of American pop culture for over 30 years by refusing to be branded. Maybe total forgiveness doesn't exist. Maybe some doors never open. But as Vanna White showed, sometimes all it takes to overcome criticism and alter people's opinions is a persistent grin. Hollywood is a terrible dichotomy because it both honors and penalizes women for the innocence they gave up in the face of hardship. Vanna White became a visual commodity for the world to consume when the images from her battle were discovered, duplicated, and displayed on the cover of Playboy magazine as she became famous on Wheel of Fortune. She never signed a commercial contract for those pictures, and she was never a Playboy model. Hugh Hefner, who was meant to be her friend, kept using her pictures for magazine covers and to uphold his position in a society that prizes female bodies. Vanna was no longer viewed as a game show host, just as her career was collapsing. She was forced to become a sex symbol rather than choosing to be one. She was battling for the freedom to manage her own body, not just her reputation. Instead of asking Hugh Hefner for money, she pleaded for humanity. She brought him to court when he refused. She did what no one anticipated. She remained steadfast, continued to provide audiences with warmth, familiarity, and comfort, continued to smile every night on television. She did this to make a statement to the world as well as to pursue justice. Like many women ensnared in Playboy's maelstrom, she was well aware of the fact that I had not given my consent. She swam upstream with calm resiliency, surrounded by humiliation. Time took care of it, so she didn't have to protest. In contrast to many celebrities, Vanna White made the decision to bear her suffering in silence, even if it broke her spirit forever. Not only did John Gibson's untimely death destroy her love for him, but it also signaled the end of her most innocent adolescence. She nevertheless kept a soft grin on her face every night while watching TV. Offstage, however, a lady was learning to accept loss as an unavoidable aspect of her existence. Her brief connection with Sylvester Stallone was portrayed in the media as a movie-like romance. In reality, it was really a band-aid solution, an effort to bridge the gap. Love was never a publicity gimmick for Vanna. Maybe that's why, in the years that followed, she kept her romances private, protecting her love with silence, a rare luxury in a society where everything is for sale. Then, like a soft wind, George Sand, Petro entered her life, bringing with him quiet strength rather than headlines or tabloid turmoil. The union of a cherished television host and a film producer made their wedding more than a fantasy wedding. For a woman who had lost everything, it represented rebirth. Vanna's history no longer held her back in the house they built together. She became a wife, a mother, and a legendary character on American televisions. Vanna refrained from discussing the secret she had told Greer that fateful night, since anything unusual was frowned upon at the time, and disobeying authority may ruin a career. Rather, she decided to keep quiet, leaving an unidentified memory in her wake. Ironically, terrible loss quickly overshadowed her personal life. She died in a horrific plane crash just when her romance with John Gibson seemed destined for long-term bliss. In the past, Vanna bravely told the public about her sadness, but her relationship with Greer was kept secret and never spoken again. Her narrative shows the price of celebrity in an era when rigid moral standards governed every facet of life in today's more tolerant culture. Vanna was a young woman who had to decide between her own self and her public persona. She was more than just a TV personality. In order to blend in with the entertainment industry, many women of her era were forced to conceal parts of themselves. The Playboy Mansion was a haven of mystery and scandal, and new information from Andy's documentary has begun to debunk the misconceptions surrounding it. In that context,
Vanna's quiet is no longer interpreted as a sign of weakness, but rather as a survival tactic used by a woman who ventured into a society that did not allow for vulnerability. Pig night, which sounds like a cruel joke but was actually a regular routine at the Playboy mansion under mogul Hugh Hefner, is one of the most startling revelations. It was more than simply a crazy celebration. Morality and law were abandoned in favor of a well-planned, sophisticated fulfillment of primitive desires. Influence drives locked doors. The opulent estate would host an exclusive guest list every Thursday night, including prominent businessmen, politicians, powerful film producers, and A-list celebrities.
The carefully chosen ladies from a high-end brothel were brought in not just to satiate cravings, but also to take part in a control ritual that raised the male ego to almost god status. The term pie night wasn't merely used to disparagingly refer to the women that were brought in. It served as a sinister representation of moral deterioration that was justified by wealth and notoriety. Prominent personalities were reported as frequent visitors, including Stallone at the height of his muscular prime, Rod Stewart with his distinctive rock and roll grin, and Jack Nicholson with his smoke-veiled, shining eyes. They did more than simply show there. They contributed to keeping the revelry taking place behind the mansion's closed doors